Nigel Farage simply cannot handle scrutiny. After doing a disappearing act, he has decided to come back onto the airways for the 10-year Brexit anniversary. But in doing so, he was asked about his £5 million donation from billionaire Christopher Harborne, and it's safe to say he was completely rattled.
I've got to ask you a question about this £5 million gift from this crypto billionaire. You know better than most politicians how LBC works. I'm getting comments as you and I speaking. This man needs to tell us what has he done with the £5 million. Get him to be truthful. Nigel Farage, please, what has happened to this £5 million gift?
With all due respect, what's it got to do with you?
Well, because it speaks to the position of you hold in office. Initially, we were told that it was because of your personal security and it would pay for that for the rest of your life. Then apparently It was some kind of reward for campaigning for Brexit. I am told we have two different stories. Which is the truth?
Well, I think you're contradicting yourself there, aren't you?
Well, if you tell me what happened with the £5 million, then we're solved.
It's an unconditional gift. I can spend it on Ferraris if I want. That'd be entirely up to me.
Why did you say it was for personal security then?
Because it was given as an unconditional gift, right? The understanding is, and you know very well, I've been physically more attacked over many years than any other politician.
I've been with you when you've been abused. I've seen that. But my listeners want to know, Mr. Farage, how much has been spent?
Nick, I can do with it as I want. I can do what I want with it. Well, I can put it on the horses.
Yes, you are under review, though, by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner.
Well, and maybe we shouldn't be discussing it in that case. But what I will say to you is, I know that I will need protection until I die.
Right.
I've no idea how long that will be. None of us do. But I know that it's damned expensive. And I now don't have to worry or even think about that because repeatedly over the years, when I've asked for help from the state, I've been refused.
So it was a reward for personal security?
Sorry, Nick, you're confusing two things. One is the money comes in, the other is where it goes, right? I can do with it as I wish, but I know myself what it's for.
What's it to do with you? Nothing to do with you. A £5 million bung. I can do whatever I want with it. I mean, to be honest, it's less interesting what he does with the money. What's more interesting is the fact that he was given the money in the first place. And I think there's a lot of journalists have spent far too much time talking about what you're going to spend your money on, are you going to spend it on security, whatever. It misses the point. But that a billionaire who resides in Thailand gave him £5 million. Now, I find this next clip interesting on Talk TV, more so in regards to Julia Hartley-Brewer.
Right, now, you're going to get cross with me, but I'm going to ask you about this. This £5 million that you took as a gift from the crypto millionaire Christopher Harborne, who lives in Thailand. You've described it variously as something that would pay for your security for years because of the huge physical threats that you do face, and I'm very aware of that. You've also talked about it being a reward for all your work on Brexit. Harborne has given, many millions more to the party, which has been declared. You did not declare this money because you said it was a private gift. You weren't in Parliament. You're now being investigated by the Privileges Committee. This is being thrown around on social media. It has been hugely damaging to you. Do you regret not declaring that money?
No.
Why not?
Because it's a purely private matter. It had nothing to do with politics whatsoever. I don't believe the rules in any way suggested that I should. So I didn't. And it wasn't a donation. It was a gift. It was an unconditional gift. All right? Now, as for his motives for doing that, well, I think he thought that maybe having given up a quarter of a century of my life, given up a good career in the City of London, faced all the abuse, perhaps he thought I deserved it. But that's irrelevant. It was an unconditional gift. So whether, and I made it very clear that I will need to have protection until the day I die, whenever that is, and none of us, of course, quite know the answer to that, and that would be its primary purpose. But frankly, I can do with the money as I wish. It is with the Standards Commissioner. I believe, having looked very carefully with lawyers, at the rule book, that I'm in the right.
Most people think of a gift as, I don't know, a bottle of champagne, a box of chocolates, not £5 million. Do you understand why most of us find it absolutely impossible to believe that someone who lives on the other side of the world, no matter how much he loves Brexit, and I don't think anyone loves it more than you and me, that they would go, you know what, Nige, love you. Here's 5 million quid, no strings attached. Do you understand why that, frankly, is not believable?
I think you'll find he voted in Hampshire, so I think you'll find that's where home, actually. But whatever. Yeah, they may well do. And people inherit vast sums of money, and all sorts of things happen in life.
He voted in Hampshire. I mean, look, Christopher Harbin lives in Thailand, and he's been there for 2 decades. He hasn't just nipped over there where he resides, which is quite funny because I feel like if it was anybody else, he'd be like, he shouldn't be voting here. You know, he lives in another country. You know, we should care about our borders. Suddenly borders don't really matter, does it? You know, capital, the flight of capital, and ease of capital going through our borders is not a concern much. But I feel like her bias was on display because, you know, she began the interview almost apologizing. Well, I know you're going to be cross with me, so, you know, I've got to ask you this question. You're a journalist. But of course, you know, Talk TV is just reform media, just like GB News, all right? But as the interview went on, you could see Farage was getting visibly irritated.
He's not your dad. You didn't inherit it.
People inherit money.
He's a crypto billionaire living on the other side of the planet, and he gave you... But again, you talked about, you said this is an unconditional gift. Yeah. Is it a gift, a reward, or is it for your security? Because
no, it's an unconditional gift. I can spend it on Ferraris if I wish to. All right?
Are you spending it on Ferraris, or are you spending it on your security?
None of your business.
The thing is, when politicians get freebies, even if it's before they're politician, the rules are very clear that if it's before up to a year before you become elected as an MP, and I do accept that at the time that you were given this gift, you were not an MP and you were not planning to return at that time. I'd had conversations with people in Reform around that time. Nevertheless, the rules state that you should declare that money.
No.
But did you think that Keir Starmer should have declared his free suits from Lord Ali?
Well, they were political.
How is the suit political and £5 million, more money than most people would ever think of or ever earn or enjoy in their lives? How can that not be political?
By the way, this is a hugely successful British business.
Good for him.
All right, which is a good thing.
Yes, good for him.
Yeah. Julia, it's a private thing. It wasn't a political donation. If you read the rules carefully, I've done absolutely nothing wrong.
Then why is there a Standards and Privileges Committee investigation into you? Well, and why has this done so much damage?
Because it has to you, and it has to the London media class. But it didn't
no, I don't think that's fair. When I first heard, I don't think I am typical of that class, and I understand your security needs. I think you know now that it was a mistake not to declare that money.
No, I don't. And I spoke to hundreds of people in Makerfield, walking up and down streets over 4 days of campaigning, and only one person raised it as an issue. Only one person raised it as an issue.
Are you cooperating fully with the committee?
Of course, but there isn't much to say.
Wouldn't it be easier? Declare it, show the receipts for what you've spent it on for security. Round-the-clock security costs an absolute fortune, hundreds of thousands of pounds. Job done.
This is an unconditional gift, all right? And I was reported, as the local elections came up, that the chairman of the Conservative Party, they were terrified of what we might do. And of course, we did wipe out the Conservatives in Essex and places like that. They were terrified of it. They've tried to make it political. I don't believe it is. I believe it's purely personal.
To try and say as well that, yes, of course, Wahid Ali gave Keir Starmer Labour Party freebies and gifts, which we criticised. We did it on our channel loads. The right-wing media, reform politicians, they lost their minds, right? And again, it's wrong, but he was given clothing. He's saying, well, that's political. But this £5 million donation, that's not political. It's all political, Nige. It's all political, right? Even if you're a billionaire, 5 million quid is still a lot of money to you. You're not just going to give someone £5 million for absolutely nothing. Now, Farage is actually right about one thing. Brewer is very much part of the London media class. But he says it as if he's also not part of the establishment. Kevin, do you think Farage wasn't expecting these questions, hoping the media would have just moved on?
Yeah, I think he was hoping that was the case. I think he was desperately hoping that they'd moved on from this because he knows there's no real defence of this. But of course, much like his daddy across the pond, he knows he can't apologise for anything. He knows that to step back in any way whatsoever is against the plan. You never apologise, you never concede anything, even if you say, for instance, I don't know, start a war and then lose it having declared victory 4 fucking times. Anyway, yeah, he's kind of genuinely sort of pathetic to see him squirm like that. But it's good that finally, after only 25 years of him affecting British politics, all of a sudden now they are giving him some level of scrutiny, which is nice. There are so many weird little elements to this story. Firstly, look, it is everyone else's business, even if the letter of the law wasn't technically broken. You're looking to become prime minister. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard than that. I'm sorry, you just do. You want to be a servant of the people. You'd better actually be open with the people. Is the way I look at it. Look at the last person who didn't do that, and it was Keir Starmer. And look where he's ending up. We'll get to that later. Yeah, he will undoubtedly need security for the rest of his life. So let's hope that's not for very long then. You know, and. Yeah, he's the truly disgusting part of this, though, of course, besides that joke, I suppose, is that he calls himself the most attacked politician in the country. I wonder if the families, the bereaved families of Joe Cox and David Amess, 2 members of Parliament in recent years who were murdered, I wonder if they would agree that being milkshaked, having a liquid milk-based beverage thrown upon you twice is the same as being stabbed to death. Yeah, Nigel, wind it in, mate. Wind it in. I mean, Trump, again, it's very Trumpian to do this. Trump says he's the most attacked American president, which is odd considering 4 of them have been assassinated. And apparently the marksmanship of his enemies is very poor. Nigel Farage is just full of shit. It's so obviously political. Not only has he openly admitted it was for his efforts in Brexit, which makes it political, not only is it clearly not unconditional, given that he instantly started having very, very pro-cryptocurrency policies as soon as he received £5 million from a crypto billionaire, but also, like, at what point do we have to really look at the rules, the laws around this? Because if you can just give £5 million completely tax-free, how is that different from just money laundering? What's to stop the mafia from doing exactly the same? Like, if you can just give a £5 million gift, then what is wire fraud? Does that even exist in Britain? I don't even know how you would be guilty of it if this isn't that. Nigel Farage is so enmeshed in the swamp that he doesn't even realise, I think, how damaging this is around the country. He says that only one person mentioned it in Makerfield. I can assure you, Nigel, a lot more people care about this around the country than you would care to admit. And it's certainly one of the reasons that you've seen such a dip in the polls for reform in recent weeks, because they've been enmeshed in scandals that are very, very reminiscent of the kind of scandals that the Tories and Labour have been in for years as well, showing that they are merely a third cheek of the same arse.
Do you think this is gonna hang around his neck? Because I mean, you've got even friendly media to reform. They're pressing him on it. I mean, you've got LBC, Nick Ferrari's on the right. You've got Julie Hartley-Brewer firmly on the right, and Talk TV is just a right-wing channel. They're even pressing him. So it feels like that it's not just the BBC and left-wing media, but right-wing media going after him too. It's like it's too big to ignore. Do you think this is not going to go away? And well, second part to that question is even the fact that even though they are asking him this question, it's good. There seems to be something missing, which is I feel like it's individualizing it. Sure, it's he's received a lot of money, but they don't talk about the fact that well, this guy's a crypto billionaire and suddenly you're pro crypto because it's almost like it's too close to the bone. They can ask Nigel Farage about his £5 million donation, but they don't want to start asking questions about, oh, maybe the system's broken because you've got the media that are owned by billionaires. You've got, okay, Christopher Harbin doesn't own media, but I'm sure he knows people. Probably knows Paul Marshall.
Yeah, I imagine so. Again, the system can't be broken. It's just bad faith actors. That's the only thing, right? You
Yeah,
can never question the core of the system, which is why, of course, the Labour Party don't go after the Tories for their dodgy donations, but by and large, and vice versa, because they realise that that's just a circular firing squad. Because they're all guilty of it. And Nigel Farage is absolutely a part of that. The Lib Dems are absolutely a part of that. It's only really the Green Party and, to a degree, the SNP that are not really in that same camp, although the SNP have had their own problems with, let's say, financial matters in recent days. But at least, I mean, thankfully, in that one case, justice was actually served. If justice were to be served in this case, Nigel Farage would also be in jail. But one might describe it as two-tier policing if one was being coy. But you can never question the system. The system isn't wrong. It's just the people. It's individualizing in the same way that we can't question why climate change is happening. It's just the carbon footprint of individuals rather than 10 companies pumping out 90% of the carbon dioxide. And so Nigel Farage, like you say, it's being kind of individualised upon him as if this is bad faith acting, which, of course, I mean, it is bad faith acting, but it's not just that. There's something far, far more rotten at the core of the system. But like you say, the fact that the right-wing media are doing this, and the fact that like true believers like Julia Hartley-Brewer, who is like a Nigel Farage fanboy, is coming out and essentially trying to coach him through it by saying, can you see why people would not think that was believable?
Yeah. You can see the
So
bias
basically,
underneath
like
it.
you can basically, she was saying, "This is bullshit. Stop defending bullshit." It's like it's difficult to do propaganda on behalf of you, Nigel, if you carry on talking bullshit that people can see through. Because again, a gift, as she says, is a box of chocolates, a bottle of wine, something like that. Not £5 million. That's not normal, Nigel. Stop it. And he still has to carry on with the thing, you know.
You know, like if you work in, I don't know if it's the same for all companies, but certain like retail companies, you're not even allowed to give a bottle of champagne, technically. You're not like, you have to declare something as cheap as that. That's crazy. Right? Obviously, I think that just goes too far. But in companies like where everyday people work, right? You can't do that because they could say you're coercing, or a customer gives you some beer because the bosses are worried that you're giving discount back. This society is more stringent on that than a billionaire giving money.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in Parliament, they have this weird thing where if you just say that you have a conflict of interest, it goes away.
It goes away. Yeah.
It does. Like it doesn't actually. You still have that conflict of interest, but because you've stated it, it means you can't be touched for it, even though you're still allowed to vote on the piece of legislation that the person might have given you money to vote on. Or you might have asked a question in Parliament specifically because someone has given you money, or in the case of certain DUP members of Parliament, because they were given free holidays by the government of Sri Lanka. Yeah, I haven't fucking forgotten. Nothing happened to him, though, because, again, the system is just rank and corrupt to its very core. And we need a clean brush to sweep through it, frankly, and Nigel Farage is not that. And if anything shows that, it's the fact that, as you pointed out, he reappeared on the 10th anniversary of Brexit, another scandalous piece of sabotage done by Nigel Farage. That's an unconvincing rhyme, but there we go. By Nigel Farage on the country that has caused years and years of turmoil and suffering and financial and cultural, social, political damage. And yet he is being held up as the future Prime Minister. And I mean, I can't help but feel we live on the most normal island there has ever been.